Welcome to Doc NYC's 2025 Spring Showcase, or mid-year celebration of documentary films and series. I'm Ruth Somalo. I'm one of the feature programmers at Doc NYC, and I'm so excited to be leading a conversation today with filmmaker David Gelb, creator of the extraordinary Netflix documentary series Chef Table, and cinematographer Adam Bricker. Let's start with you, David. Tell us a little bit about how did all happen. Let's go back to the beginning. It's 2011, and you just premiered this wonderful and indie little documentary called Jiro Dreams of Sushi, pretty much as a one-man band. And now we're celebrating season 8 of the Chef's Table series with a screening of Legends. Tell us a little bit what happened from that moment until now.
Well, um, I wanted to make a kind of documentary and food show that I actually wanted to watch myself. And, I loved Anthony Bourdain and I loved how he made his work about more than just the food. It's really about the people and the culture. And that was something that had guided me in making Jiro Dreams of Sushi. And at the same time, I wanted to make something that was also beautiful and that used all the kind of tools of cinema that I loved. I never thought that I was going to go into documentaries, but when I did, I knew that I wanted it to look like a real movie and not just feel like a normal doc. And so that's what Jiro Dreams of Sushi became. It became a human journey, a story about a family, about a person. You don't learn how to make sushi, but you learn why he makes sushi and why he tries so hard and strives so hard. And so we were so fortunate that the movie did well on following its Tribeca premiere. The movie did really well. It did fine theatrically, but it did really well on Netflix. And Netflix became the place where people came to see documentaries. And many people were watching documentaries at this time. This is now 10 years ago. People were seeing documentaries for the first time on Netflix. A lot of people that were not into docs started to get into them. And we found this great audience, and Netflix was very supportive when we wanted to make an extension of this, an extension of this movie that could have other chefs and other people. Um, the biggest challenge, of course, was that I had made Jiro over the course of a year with just an editor and a production assistant in Japan who was also my translator. How do I make something that is that, but six of them on a TV schedule? And that's when I kind of brought in the team, and I had to learn to trust people in a way that I never had before. And I'm so glad I did. Between Andrew Freed and Brian McGinn, who became my collaborators and fellow executive producers, we brought on an amazing team of story people and, of course, the cinematographers. I had done the cinematography on Jiro, but I knew that here I couldn't do everything on my own. And that's where Adam Bricker comes into the story, along with Will Basanto, who are our two original DPs who set the look for the show. And I think that the viewers of this will have seen both of their excellent cinematography. Basanta on Alice Waters, and then Bricker is his work is on the Jamie Oliver episode for this season, and he's also done some extraordinary work on some recent seasons. And one of the things, actually, I want to pose something to you, Adam, just really quickly. Were you always wanting to do scripted? Did you even know if you were going to do documentary work? Because I know you worked on Hacks and all these other things. What were you wanting to do?
Well, I came to this series first and foremost as a fan of Jiro. I'd seen it. I hadn't seen it on Netflix. I saw it in theaters at the downtown Independent, and I remember canceling my plans immediately and going to Little Tokyo and getting sushi. And then David and I went to the same film school together, but we didn't know each other in film school. We were there at the same time. We had some mutual friends, and I was introduced to Chef's Table through Brian McGinn, who I had done some commercial projects with. And prior to Chef's Table, I hadn't done much documentary work. I definitely hadn't shot any food, so I was very lucky that after meeting, I must have charmed you in the meeting to get to get the job. But I was so excited to be involved, and I think you're right. I had a scripted background shooting narrative projects, feature films, and television shows, and I think with collaborating with Will and with the whole team, sort of what I brought to it initially was figuring out how we could take that same approach that you had shot Jiro over the course of a year and figure out how we could make these in a 7-8 day shoot. Which initially was quite daunting, but I think we sort of built out this hybrid, documentary, leaning on our scripted narrative background approach to telling the stories that created a format that succeeded.
And Adam, also, um, this language that you both created for Chef's Table is so lush, like so sensual, like operatic and bombastic, but also very intimate. Like, can you maybe talk a little bit about how you both developed this look and what were your key visual references, if any, or
Oh,
besides
well,
here?
I mean,
Girl.
obviously Jiro was a huge reference, and like David's use of macro photography and slow motion in Jiro, high resolution cinematography. I think that was a key foundation for us, and we were sort of building upon that. I think the primary thing that Will Besant and I were thinking about was how we could make these films intentional. I think we spent time with these chefs and got to know them. And first and foremost, all of these chefs are incredibly intentional, and we wanted our photography and our filmmaking to sort of reflect that. So also the practicality. We were just talking about how we only had 7 or 8 days to tell someone's life story, which is a daunting challenge. So there wasn't the opportunity really to be loose and documentary verite and sort of see what happened. To tell it right, we needed to come in with a game plan and sort of execute that. So I think, story wise and then technically, with those objectives in mind, I think we were just trying to be really, really intentional with the photography and as specific as we could.
Mhm. And I'll add, one of the things that I loved about Adam's addition to the show is also, first off, going back, I didn't want to hire anybody that had worked on food stuff before. I didn't want anyone to settle into any established convention about how it's shot, what kind of cameras are used in it on the kind of existing food shows, which were all sort of TV competitions or travelogue kind of shows, where it's sort of like, it's very much more videography, much more than cinematography, or it's a studio shoot, like a talk show kind of situation, where it's instructional. What I loved about Adam was that he was going to take a completely fresh approach. And just like I wanted to bring a real cinematic movie approach to Jiro, I knew that he would do the same thing here. And one of the things I love about Adam's work is how prepared he is. We look at the options, and this is something that was really necessary in this short amount of time that we do have to shoot Chef's Table, which of course is longer than any other food show shoots at any kind of chef's restaurant. But to make like the kind of biographical documentary approach that we're doing, it is short for that kind of genre. Adam comes in so prepared. He's looking at the location. He has diagrams of where the lighting should be. So that way, when we're in the kitchen, we can really kind of put the camera anywhere we need to be to follow the action. The preparation allows us to be spontaneous. By coming in very prepared, we are ready for anything. So we can follow the game plan exactly that we make with the chef and kind of go to the specific scenes or dishes or the things that they want to show us. Or because we're prepared, if something else comes up, we're ready for it. We can find that spontaneity through the preparation. And that's one of the things I love, love, love about working with Adam.
And jumping a little bit to the whole of the series, watching the series really seems to me like you have embarked on a curatorial project of exemplary humans that are kind of like working towards social change, that have really complex and interesting life stories. And also, many of them have struggled, like most of us, with self worth. So, can you tell us a little bit about how do you go about these research projects? How do you find these like passionate and self reflective people?
Well, I think that the secret sauce that we discovered, um, my team and I, the original group that was making Jiro Dreams of Sushi, we really found that, as I said before, it's not about how to cook or why we cook. It's about the human experience. If we can make audiences connect all over the world with a 90-year-old man who make sushi in a subway station that costs like $500 a seating, but we can still see them as human beings and we can still connect with them. That's something really special. And so we want to tell the stories about chefs, not only chefs that are making amazing food, because that's also important, and we want to see the craft and we want to see how beautiful the food looks, but we want them to have stories that we can all connect with. When people watch Jiro, they saw Yoshikazu, Jiro's son, who was at the time of filming was like 50 something years old, and his father was in his 80s. It was like, when is this guy going to get to take over, and how does he live up to his father's expectations? Like, that's something that a lot of people can relate to, is living up to what your family hope, their dreams and hopes for you, and the pressure of that. And so all of our chefs have that kind of story archetype, not that specific one, but there's always a story that drives us. And that's why, actually, Adam, you may remember that the show was originally called Chef's Story, which was sort of a take on on Toy Story, because I love Pixar movies. So I was thinking about Ratatouille and Pixar. We changed it to Chef's Table, which is more of a food term. And frankly, I'm glad that we did that. Um, so the process of finding the chefs is really led by collaborator Brian McGinn, who has been with us since the very beginning and who introduced me to Adam and has really helped me a great deal in managing the show, and frankly has been running the show as the key casting person and the person kind of moving the show through post-production, et cetera, and also directing great episodes like Jamie Oliver. Brian is very keyed into the food world. He knows what the cool chefs are. He's talking to the experts. We have a lot of experts on our show who kind of give narration. They're also giving us opinions and tips on who else to cast. So we kind of put together a menu of chefs who have different kinds of stories. They have beautiful food. They're willing to give us the time and the access, and are willing to do kind of the deep thought, the deep interviews that we're hoping to do, and are willing to sacrifice time on a very busy schedule, balancing family and restaurant and all of that. And that's really what it is. It's great stories. We want to tell a nice rounding of diverse stories in terms of how famous they are, in terms of where they come from, what their struggles were, the types of food, the places in the world. The hardest part is whittling it down, because there are so many chefs that are worthy of being on Chef's Table. But that's also the great thing about the show, and why we've been able to continue. Now, I believe with all of our spinoffs and everything, it's like 10 seasons or so. It can keep on going, and I want it to keep on going. And that's the amazing thing, is that there's so many chefs that can do it, and we just want to find great stories that people can connect with. And if people are connecting with the chefs, then we're doing our job.
And oftentimes, these very large characters and personalities really open up, about their struggles and in a very real way, and about what they feel as failures. And I wonder, like, how do you get these, people that are very media savvy at this point in their careers? How you get them to open up so they can, feel authentic and intimate?
There are a few pieces of that. One is that from the very first day, when they see us kind of roll up with our production trucks, and they see the level of commitment that we have made in terms of our crew, in terms of using the absolute best cameras, the best lenses, everything is at the highest possible level of production value. Because, as Adam said, we want to put as much care and passion into what we're doing as the chefs are doing into what they're doing. And the other piece of our casting is passion. It all comes from passion. A passionate person can see it in other people. We come in determined to make something very special. And as soon as they see that we're giving a lot to this. We're putting a lot of work into this. And so that inspires them to give us a lot. All of our directors have slightly different interviewing styles. My style is one of conversation. The more vulnerable I make myself, the more the chefs give to us. Um, there's also the time. You know, we let the chefs do their media savviness and say all the things that they want to say, or the things that they're used to saying in the many interviews that they've done, especially in Legends, where these are people who have been interviewed thousands of times. How do we get even deeper? And that's just rolling the camera for hours and hours and hours. Sometimes, we're doing an interview for 4 hours, and we take a break for lunch, and then we keep going. And it allows a deep kind of therapy session to unfold. And as they have the space to think about it, we're not trying to run out of there. We're not like trying to keep the interview punchy. We let them go deep. We ask the question and then we just sit there and we're comfortable sitting in the silence until they're able to find the answer that they're looking for, which is like the opposite of like a talk show kind of interview where we have to just keep going and help them along. Um, and then, we come in with our research. We know the story. We've read everything there is to read about them. We have talked to their friends and family. And so we kind of help them along because there are things that they may have even forgotten about that we are helping to kind of bring up, and then it triggers a memory. And, our job in Legends, our newest season, what can we show of people that they haven't already seen? We want to show a deeper side. We want to show a vulnerability from our chefs, from our legends that people have not seen before. And that's a way to connect with them. It's inspiring to see how somebody who has reached that level of acclaim and success, they're vulnerable. They're just people too. They're vulnerable and they're sensitive. They want to find ways to use their powers in the right direction because money and success and awards, it only means so much. You look at Thomas Keller in the beginning of his episode and he's got a tin can with all of his James Beard awards. I mean, there's so many. And to many young chefs, you think that they might think, and this goes for filmmakers as well, and for anybody in a creative craft, it's like, oh, all I need is that Oscar, or all I need is that Emmy, or all I need is that Beard award, and then I really, really will have done it. But then you realize that once they have it, what am I really here for? And it really comes down to connection. How do we connect with the world? How do we make the world a little bit better for the next generation? Cooking is an act of love, it's an act of generosity. They put everything they have into giving something to their guests, giving something to their family, whoever you're cooking for. Um, and so that's their instinct. And so once our legends have reached that level, now Jose Andres is on a mission to feed the world. Jamie Oliver and Alice Waters want to feed people in schools. They want to help train kids not only on how to cook, how to eat. Because it's just so important for the health of their lives moving forward, and so that they can continue that tradition for their families. And that's that's the amazing thing, and that's what our show kind of allows them to have an even deeper platform for that. And we give them the space and the time to do it.
Yeah, I think it was Jose Andres that mentioned in his episode that for him, food connects the dots with everything that's important in life, like politics, environment, economy, like the future.
Absolutely.
And, and I, like you said, like I think that has been present in every season of Chef's Table, but it's definitely like a very major point, like examples of social change through activism of the chefs, in Legends. So I'm, you know, in terms of like giving us especially role models for masculinity and accountability and self-reflection in a moment that we're desperately needing that in the public arena. I feel like these humans that you're bringing us close to, and this process of discovery that you go through with them, and self-reflection are like so important. Like it's like I felt myself so emotional. I was like, I haven't been this emotional about somebody preparing a plate of food since my grandmother cooked for me. Like what is this like connection with the emotionality of humanity at its best that
Yeah.
drives you?
I mean, it's what you just said. You know, we feel most connected. Like when we're kids, we are so curious about the world. If we're fortunate enough to live in enough of an environment of abundance that we can be curious, and there are a lot of people, young people in the world who don't have that. Um, but for those, and that's something that Jose Andres cares about very much because he wants to feed the hungry everywhere in the world so that they can be curious. If you're hungry, all you can think about is food. But when you're fed and you feel healthy, you feel good because of a good diet, then you can kind of look around and think about the world. The love that we feel from our parents, our grandparents, that when they cook for us, these are our absolute core memories. These are moments of true connection without all of the distractions of being an adult. And I mean, that's why this famous scene in Ratatouille always struck such a chord with me. Anton Ego, who is just so critical of everything, and he's so, Anton Ego is the food critic who's kind of like the antagonist of the movie. He's so difficult, and it has to be the perfect wine, and everything has to be just right for him, and he's criticizing everything. Um, when he tastes the ratatouille, it brings him back to when his mom made him that same dish in the countryside of France, and it connects him to like a feeling of innocence and wonder. And that's like true kind of magic. And so, that's if we can touch that in a person, because that's what I'm feeling, and that's what our directors are feeling. We're all kind of feeling um, that connection to people. I think one of the biggest problems in the world today is loneliness, and how do we deal with our loneliness. And some people can take a dark path with that and fill it with its material possessions, or wanting to be strong, or being a bully, or whatever that is. How do we point people in the direction of love, and point into a direction of connection? um I think that's the one of the most important things. I was talking to a journalist recently, and I was thinking about how I used to get made fun of because like I liked Lego too much. And I was just like, whatever I was into it so much that people were like, "Oh, you're a nerd." And that's not cool. Like that's not good. But I think it should be the opposite. And that's what we want to show on Chef's Table, is that being passionate is cool. Caring about stuff is cool. Being generous is cool. And you don't need to be like a tough guy. True strength is in how you treat the weakest amongst us, and true strength is believing in what you're doing and sharing that knowledge, and all of that. And so, that's our mission on the show, is to show passion in this beautiful light and let kids know it's like it's cool. If you want to cook all the time, great. If you want it, whatever it is that you want to do, go for it and believe in it.
Very beautifully said. Adam, can you talk to us a little bit about working with Jamie Oliver and Tony Blair in that first beautiful episode of the new season? What, I know you talked a little bit about having everything really well planned, but allowing for spontaneity. Maybe you can walk us through how did you devise like the kind of like the visual composition and flow and rhythm of that episode that is so enthralling.
Yeah, well, Jamie was a fascinating subject, and very different than the episodes that I had shot previously, because nowadays he's primarily cooking for television or for different forms of media. He's obviously comes out very prolific cookbook author, and when we were with Jamie filming, you know, on past episodes, we're typically in a working kitchen that is putting out food for diners. And in this instance, Jamie was cooking, but for camera. So it was sort of this meta thing of us seeing Jamie's production unfold with our chef's table lens. And that was really fun and really fascinating. I will say it was quite challenging. And when we're with a typical chef's table chef in their kitchen, and they're doing a multi course tasting menu, we'll get several takes of things. We can maybe say, "Hey, could you fire one more of those? We didn't exactly get the shot right." But we had a realization pretty quickly on Jamie Oliver that there's no stopping production. And when Jamie was in television production, they were going to be cooking, and time is money, and we needed to keep pace. And so that was really fun. I was also just very inspired by Jamie's work. Looking back, there's so much archival in the episode, and his early naked chef work. Going back and watching those episodes, it was really just quite inspiring, and from a cinematography perspective, the stuff he was doing back then was really groundbreaking. There was 8 millimeter and 16 millimeter, and it was handheld. And this was in a time when most food shows were shot, three camera in a studio, and Jamie was shooting in his own apartment with his friends. And I immediately saw that that show had a great influence on Bourdain, which in turn sort of influenced a lot of chef's tables. So it was sort of a full circle moment for us as filmmakers.
Also, the rock and roll music that he loved is also very present in the documentary. Also, it's really fun to watch. Um, David, do you want to talk to us a little bit about the last episode and how did you work with the directors in choosing which episode they're going to direct, and how did you choose that one for yourself?
Um, Brian and I give a lot of thought, and Andrew Freed, who is the founder of Boardwalk Pictures, which is our physical production company that uh, produces the show. We think about who's going to get along with the chefs, who is the most interested in them, who has the patience and kind of soft touch that will be necessary. These chefs are the kings and queens of their domain, and they're not used to being directed, if you know what I'm saying. And so we need to be able to go and somebody that is going to be able to have the vision, not get frustrated when the vision is not like what Adam was saying. We want another take of the beef Wellington. It's not happening, you know. And how do you react to that? And so for Legends, everybody, it was me, Clay Jeter, and Brian, who did all the episodes on the season, and we've done the most episodes, I think, cumulatively. Probably Clay has the number one, and then Brian and I, maybe me number two, and then Brian. No, Brian's number two on how many episodes he's done, and then I've done a lot of episodes towards the beginning, but then I've been working on other projects. I actually was happy to let other people direct the show because they bring a real kind of energy and freshness to it that I really love, and I don't want to keep on doing my Jiro thing and what I was doing in the earlier episodes kind of over and over. In the case of Alice Waters, she wouldn't have it any other way, and she really wanted me personally to be out there filming her, and I was glad to oblige because I'm such a fan of hers. I before I ever met her, I was cooking from her cookbook, The Art of Simple Food, which I still think is one of the best cookbooks, my favorite personal cookbook. Um, and so I wanted to do justice to her story. I was immediately intimidated because there is no real comprehensive Alice Waters documentary. How are we going to do this in our schedule? Alice also is such a boss. I mean, she controls every single aspect of everything. And we had spirited discussions on not only what we were filming, the schedule, where she wanted the light to be, all of the, she really wanted to be in control of everything. And so it was fun to try to follow her lead while still doing what it is that we do. Um, and she's just like a real miracle in the way that she finds such beauty in the simple. And like, I love the story that she tells at the beginning of the episode about how she was going to go to this food convention in New York, and all the other chefs that they got the foie gras and they got the caviar and they have all the special French techniques, or they're doing all this stuff. And she's like, I'm going to bring a salad and just show people how you can have different lettuces in a salad and they're fresh and they're beautiful. And that simplicity caught fire. And she believes deeply in that. I love how she doesn't take no for an answer. And if she believes in something, she goes for it. As she says, impossible is not a word in the French language. And it reminded me of when, the things that have gone right for me are when I've really believed in something and just pushed it, and and made it happen. Like nobody thought that Jiro was a good idea. When I say nobody, people, financiers, et cetera, they were like, "This is boring." Even Jiro himself said that I was making the most boring film of all time when I was filming the octopus for hours. And I said, no, this is great. This is great, I think. Hoping, you always have doubts, but you just have to go with the conviction. Nobody wanted to hear a pitch on Chef's Table. They only thought that, except for Netflix, of course, the convention was that you have to have a host. You have to do what's been done before. Otherwise, how do we know it's going to be successful? Netflix, however, which are groundbreakers in their own right in bringing in this streaming era, they were willing to take a risk because they saw that Jiro did well, and they're like, let's make something different. Let's show documentaries to a mass audience. Like that had never been done before. And so Alice continues to inspire. I'm really glad that I had the chance to work with her. And everybody should watch her episode, buy her books, and look at how she finds the sublime in what many think is just mundane.
She was the only chef that I didn't know in this Legend series, and I fell in love with her immediately because you decided to start the episode with that particular anecdote that you mentioned, and like her in the plane with the soil and the little leaves like in her hand luggage. So beautiful and amazing. And another thing that I love about having her is that she really brings like a feminist perspective to a very masculine perceived way of working in the kitchen when she makes a decision to hiring two chef positions for every chef, and like to really give everybody the chance to have a life and not be super stressed out of their minds. And she figures out how to make it productive and possible economically. It's just such an incredible example. So
Yeah, I love that. I love how she defies that convention. And she had to be tough because it is totally patriarchal. The chef like world is so male dominated, and that's changing, which is great. But like there was a real like male and military culture going on in these kitchens, militaristic in terms of organization, the kind of hazing and suffering that the younger chefs would have to go through, and that kind of level of cruelty. I mean, you see it in a lot of pop culture, like you see it in The Bear, etc. Like people are traumatized by that. And how do you change that? Alice fought through all of these kind of perceptions about like how you can't be a real chef if you're a woman, and what she did was she tried to create like, no, we're going to do this in a different way where we allow people to keep their humanity, keep their families, like keep all of that. And if we make a little bit of less money doing that, then, whatever, because it's not about money, and I think that's just like so beautiful.
sorry, I don't understand.
Oh, sorry, that's my Siri was just telling me. I think that's really beautiful. Oh.
Do you looking back at the whole entire series, what do you both think what do you think the chef's table have done to impact food culture and food media?
Adam, go for it.
It's a big question. I'm not totally sure. I mean, we're 10 years into it, but we're still making it. So it's tough to look back on it and try to think about its broader impact. I mean, I think that the things that I'm most proud of the show is that I think we've taken great care to tell these stories, and I think that as filmmakers, we've pushed ourselves. So, the 4 episodes that we're releasing in this Legends season are unlike episodes that we've done previously. It was really really tough to figure out the format and figure out a show that works, and then the fun part about that is sort of breaking it apart and trying to do it all over again and improve upon it. And I've really enjoyed like working those documentary muscles, and I don't know, figuring out a new approach to how we can sort of answer the call of making these documentary stories the filmic ones that they deserve to be.
Maybe any final words before we wrap up?
I mean, I feel such an incredible gratitude. That's really the thing. I'm grateful, of course, to our chefs and to Netflix for their support through all this time. We're now the longest running show ever on Netflix. We're their first doc series, and they never gave up on us, and they let us keep going and going and going. They let us cook, and that's an amazing thing. They're incredible partners, and I'm most grateful to the team that has kept this thing going. I remember when we were first planning the first season of Chef's Table, and I was ready to quit because the idea of doing, Jiro took so much out of me, and I'm so glad, I loved the experience, but also it was exhausting because there was nobody else. Like I had like 3 or 4 people that I worked with on the entire movie, and it was exhausting right up to the final. I was color correcting on my own computer because we just had no resources to do anything. To have this incredible team, to have Andrew and to have Brian and then Danny O'Malley, our story producer, and there are a lot of people. He's also an executive producer. And then Adam, Will, people who have been there since the beginning and have stuck with us and have made the show what it is and taken it to new heights. Like this team makes it happen. And I am so incredibly grateful that they've stuck with us for so long so that we can keep going into the future. And even the thing I'm even more grateful for is the audience that has stuck with us and continues to watch, because none of this would be possible if people weren't willing to try watching something that's different and new. And now that we're this institution and they're still watching, I mean, that's just, it's incredible. And I'm so grateful.
Well, thank you everybody at home for watching with us. And thank you so much, Adam and David, for this wonderful conversation.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.